If you guys are tired of seeing gurus talk about the quick tips, tricks, or habits that you can change in order to change your life completely in 30 to 60 days or whatever unrealistic figure they give you, and you're actually looking for content that's more in-depth, is for people who are critical thinkers and actually want to get to the root cause of why they're not able to actually change their life effectively, then you're on the right page. On this page, we talk about deep level identity change. We cover all aspects of your life from health, wealth, and relationships, starting off with your mindset. I have a newsletter called The Next Chapter. The link is in the bio. Make sure to subscribe to that newsletter on a week-to-week basis. I send you frameworks, actual things that you can do on a day-to-day basis, and mindsets that you can take on board, which are going to radically change your perspective on life. Once you're able to see the issues you're having or the limiting beliefs that you have, and you're able to change that, you will begin to see progress in your life. Not every single day will you have time to sit down and watch a video like this, but every single week, everyone can take time out of their day to basically read a 5 to 10 minute newsletter, which is going to help them radically start to change and become the person they want to be. So make sure to click that link below and let's get started with the video, guys. Let's go. So everyone seems to glorify this idea that we are these self-made individuals. You hear it in the music, in the culture, online. Everyone's painting this picture that they started off in the mud and they grew themselves all the way to the top. Well, this is something that I've always disagreed with. I believe that nobody is truly self-made. Everybody is a combination of influences and people around them, and they basically have shaped their personality either consciously or subconsciously based off of the influences in their life. So matter of fact, they're not a direct result of what they've became because of their own actions, but because of the influences and ideas they've taken from other people. Now, this doesn't have to be a negative thing. Of course, it is a negative thing. If the idea and the beliefs you have are negative, that means you've been extracting those from very negative resources. And maybe this has been something that you've been doing subconsciously. You haven't actually taken the time to look at all your beliefs, all your limiting ideas, and actually ask yourself, where did these ideas stem from? If you can actually get to the bottom of that, then you can begin to actually develop your character in the way in which you want to develop it. See, throughout the course of our lives, we tend to change our personality and shape our personality based off of our age, the environment we're in, and the circumstances we're currently living in. You know, you're going to be a totally different person when you're a child than when you are a parent of children. You know, there's personality traits that you have to embody in order to handle the responsibilities of being a parent, and there's a lack of personality traits you have to develop when you're a child. Whilst when you're a child, it's all about developing those personality traits. I believe this is something that isn't really emphasized enough in society, that we do need to work on certain characteristics, things that are not visible to the naked eye, but we can sense it in someone. You can sense when someone's confident. But if you see somebody walking down the street, of course you can look at things like their body language, the way they carry themselves, their head raised high, and you can say, yeah, that person's confidence. But for the most part, you can't see confidence until you take time to spend time with that person and actually figure out their character, their decisions that they're making in their current life, etc., etc. There's all sorts of different personality traits you need to basically improve as you get along in your life. Patience, your ability to handle stress, leadership skills. You need to be the sort of person that's a critical thinker. How are you able to react to situations that aren't the most ideal? What's your financial situation like? Have you got a good relationship with money? There's so much we can go into, but this video I'm talking about deconstructing this idea that you are not self-made. And once you can accept that, you can begin to actually see your life for who you are. See, I believe the reason why most people are not able to make progress whenever they read a book or whether they see tips online is because they haven't done the most important part of the journey, which is first of all diagnose themselves, figure out who they are, what they want to do with their life, figure out who they want to become, and then essentially begin to bridge that gap in between those two destinations. So let's get into it, guys, about the influences that you've had. So a few of the influences you've had in your life which have helped shape you to be the person you are today is things like the school you went to, the education, the country you live in, what the culture's like, first world, second world, third world country, what's everybody like in your tribe, in the local area, the teachers that educated you as well, whatever their beliefs were somehow embedded into your system one way or the other. The TV shows you watch, the content you consume, the books you might have read, whether it's back then or even now, currently in the present moment. These are things that also influence you as well. The work environment you're in, your friends, your family member, your relatives. And some of these influences are more than just outside external influences. Some of these influences are genetic. Certain genetics that you're born with are going to dictate who you become as a person in life, unless you can consciously see these patterns and you can begin to actually constructing the personality you want from a conscious point of view, rather than just letting circumstances dictate who you become in this world. I always like to start these videos with a story of myself to give you guys a bit of a background. So my background is, my family's from Zimbabwe in Africa. Now, my mum pretty much grew up there and she moved over to the United Kingdom in '98, moved me over when I was 3 years old. I'm now 30, so I've been predominantly living in the UK for 27 years. So my culture, my personality is more influenced by here than it is of my native country back home. But of course, there's still elements that sort of mix and merge, which basically help make me the unique person I am today. But growing up, my mum pretty much was raised in Zimbabwe back then. I'm not the most biggest expert in history, but Zimbabwe was quite a rich country back in the day. It wasn't doing as bad as what it currently is at this very moment in time, the situation that it's in. The economy was a lot more thriving. School, education, things like that were quite strong, but it was a colonial Africa. So my mum grew up in an era where basically the emphasis on how you build success in your life is education. If you can get yourself educated and you can learn a lot more, then you're able to bring those skills that you're able to develop over the period of your course in the education system, take them into the workspace, and you can make more income for yourself and your family. And that means a better quality of life moving forward. And my grandmother actually was a teacher as well at the same school that my mother attended. So you can imagine you've got a teacher who's telling you the importance of education, but is also the one doing the educating herself. So pretty much my mom grew up knowing that how important learning new ideas and education is. Now, when my mom moved over to this country, she knew this was the case. She knew that in order for her to build a life that is going to be in the best interest of us and be able to put food on the table and give us a decent quality of life, she's going to have to get herself educated in something that is going to result directly into a career of some sort. Now, she lived a very good life when she was in Zimbabwe, and she moved into the UK because of a divorce. She just wanted a new life and she moved us over because of that. My mom was always quite ambitious. She wanted to travel and she wanted to see other parts of the world, and everyone told her not to do it, but she came over to this country regardless. Now, when she came over, of course, she had to start getting into education and start beginning to build herself a little bit as well. Now, because of that, my mum has always been someone that's emphasized the idea of education on me. She's always said that you need to learn, you need to study, you need to revise. When I'd be trying to play PlayStation and not reading, she would always get very frustrated, because in her head, she said, the only way for you to build a good life is for you to go through the school system, be educated, and basically get a career that's going to help put food on the table. And me, I was a very creative kid, so the subjects that I like to study were things like English, media, history. And whenever I tell my mum about these, my mum, of course, was happy that I was doing education, but she couldn't see a direct correlation with the things that I was studying and what career path that I could possibly go down that's going to help me make money and put food on the table. So although she wasn't a disencouraging mum, she was a little worried, a little skeptical. And she wasn't the happiest when I told her that I actually wanted to be a rapper. This is something that I picked up later on in my life. You see, when I was growing up, hip hop was sort of really influencing my age group. I was born in '95. When I was in the year 2000, I was in reception. 2001, I was in year 1. 2002, year 2, etc., etc., etc. And I remember one of the very first albums I listened to was College Dropout. We listened to 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. There was a lot of early hip hop then. There was also pop music like Black Eyed Peas and things like that. My sister was a big listener of music. Now, because of that, whenever I'd watch TV, I would see these rappers living the life that we wanted to live. And I would see my mum slave away for a wage every single month, but barely have enough time to spend with us, to basically take us where we want to go. We couldn't buy the things we wanted to do, but she was doing everything she could to sacrifice for my well-being. Now, I knew, of course, my mother loved me, right? But at the same time, as a kid, you think if the thing that you're doing is not translating into enough income to be able to give you the life you want, maybe there's a different path I can go down. And this is where my idea of becoming a rapper sort of came in. On top of that, I'm black. I used to see black men who were rappers as well, and how much this influenced me to think, okay, well, if they look like me, same color of skin, same sort of passion, similar type of background with a single mother, then maybe this is the best path for me. So what am I doing in this video right now? I'm giving you guys a background of my background, my family background, and you can sort of start to see all the little influences that were shaping my personality. Now, at the time, I didn't think these things were shaping my personality. It was just things that I was taking in subconsciously, and then you sort of start to see your life move in this particular direction. But now that I'm older and I'm able to take a look back and look at these behavior traits, I can find out where they stemmed from. What was it that made me want to do that particular career path? And this is what you guys need to start doing with your life as well. You need to start going into your background, your upbringing, the culture you grew up in, and what are some of the good and bad traits that you were able to develop for yourself. See, the influences in your life, because they have so much impact on who you become, and because it's not something we're really taught in the education system, the importance of that, we go through our lives just believing that the path paved in front of us, or the one we can currently see, is the correct one, and we never question that path that we're actually going down. It's only when we sit down and we begin to question that path can we begin to say, okay, maybe this might not be the best direction for me. Now, of course, I know what you're thinking. Well, Tino, that's all fun and game, but where do I start if I want to start understanding who I am? What are the influences impacting me? So I've decided to make this video a little bit more practical. So we're going to be giving you guys a series of questions. If you need to get a drink, cup of water, cup of coffee, pause this video now, get what you need, and then come back and give this your full attention. I recommend you have a notepad and pen if you're serious. If you got this far in the video and you've listened to me so far, I'm hoping you're actually serious about your life change. But if you're not, that's up to you. It took me 11 years of wasting my time to realize how important the things I'm trying to get you guys to do is in your life. Because what happens is, similar to driving, you have blind spots that you need to address. You need to see these blind spots and understand what danger they propose in your life if you do not actively bring them into your conscious mind. So I'm going to be giving you a series of questions, and I'm going to also be partaking in these questions. When I give you a question, I'm going to give you an example of my life. I'm going to pause and ask you guys to think of something in your life. If you have to pause for each question to really give it a bit of thought, then do that. But make sure you take this seriously. This is the deep level identity change stuff that you need to do in order to actually get your perspective right. See, wealth is not built because of what you do. It's built because of who you become. The success you want is a direct result of who you become in the future. And like I said, we have a load of influences that are influencing us to shape our personality currently. So if you're not successful yet, what you need to do is you need to bring them into your conscious mind, and you need to begin to direct your life in a way that you're actually extracting information from the right influences. You're the director of your life. You're basically the CEO of your life. You are the business, and you know the whole system. And you begin to hire and fire accordingly. So if you guys are ready, pen and paper, let's start with the first question. So similar to my story, my very first question to you guys is, who raised you? Was it your mom, your dad? Was it both? Maybe it wasn't your parents. Maybe you're an orphan. Maybe it was your grandparents, because your parents maybe were irresponsible. They went through a situation where they couldn't actively be there. But when I say who raised you, I'm not talking about who was just there. I'm talking about who had the most influence on you growing up. For some people, it isn't family members. For some people, it's friends or teachers that believed in them at school, who took the time to actually get to know them, right? Who are these people? See, for me, it was my mum, but growing up, because my mum was working multiple jobs, also studying at the same time as balancing these jobs, she didn't really have the time to sit down and really get to know me. So a lot of my early influences was the friends around me. I would look to the people around me. I would look to teachers in school, because you got to remember, as parents, we like to believe we have a lot of influence on our kids, but they spend the majority of their life in the education system. And whatever that looks like on a day-to-day basis, you'll never truly know, because you're not the kid sitting down in the classroom seeing all the different influences that can impact him, right? So a lot of that is going to influence his personality, and that's just out of your control, unless you do homeschooling and maybe you don't have the financial resources to start doing that. But with that being said, we'll get into that. But first of all, who raised you? Who was the biggest influences in your childhood? I'm talking about as early as you can remember walking or talking on this earth. If you can remember as far back as 3 years old, then let's start there. If your earliest memories are as late as maybe when you were 9 or 10, going into secondary or high school, then let's start there. But who raised you? Now, my next question is, what character traits did you best like about them? See, when I was growing up, even though my mum was a relentless worker and we had minimal time to actually sit down and speak about what's going on in my life, and she speak about what's going on in her life, and she probably did that because she didn't want to scare me with all the stress that she has to handle, whilst also being the strong, independent mother who's raising a child. But one of the things my mother always had was empathy. No matter what she's going through, she would not take the frustration of what's going on in her life on me. And I knew that as early as possible. I didn't know the word empathy, I didn't understand the concept, but I knew deep down that even though my mom goes through a lot, she's understanding. She will try to understand my point of view, and any advice she gives me is in my best interest. And I always knew that's a character trait that one day I want to have, the ability to consider someone else's experience and not just think about yourself. What are the personal traits that you liked in the people who raised you? Whether it's a teacher, a coach, a mom, a dad, both, friends, family, a sibling. What was it about them that you liked? What stood out about them, and why did you like that personality trait? Really think about this. The earliest memories you can have on this earth. I want you to go back. Now, the next question is, what didn't you like about them and why? See, I like the idea of my mom having empathy when it came to, if I had a problem or I made a mistake, she'd be very forgiving. She'd be very understanding. She's later told me on in my life that this came from her mother, my grandmother, who taught her this. And it's basically a character trait she picked up from her, and it's passed down, and hopefully I pass it down on to my kids when I have it. But one thing I didn't like was my mom's limiting belief on what could be achieved in this world outside of education. She never directly disencouraged me when I was trying to be a rapper, but I wish she had just considered that not every single child has to have this perfect path to walk down. Of course, she's doing what she believes is best for me, what she believes is the only thing that's going to work for me, and I can't blame her. But you have to be honest with yourself. What are the traits you didn't like, and how did that influence you? Did that disencourage you? Did that maybe make you more motivated? So I want you to ask yourself, the person you've come up with, or the people who raised you, the tribe, what is it about them you didn't like? What is the character trait that you used to see, and how did that impact you? Did it make you think, I don't ever want to have that? Or did it make you think, okay, I'm going to listen to what this person says? Or did it rub off on you where you now have that trait as well yourself? Really think about this. What's the one trait that you didn't like about them growing up? My next question, another influence in your life, your childhood, is, did you have any siblings? And if you did have siblings, where do you stand? Are you the youngest, the middle child, the oldest? What sort of impact did that have on your life? Maybe you're an only child. Now, if you're an only child, how did that impact you? Was there ever a time when you wanted siblings, someone to look up to, or someone to be responsible for in some shape or manner? You know, maybe if you was the oldest child, you're a little bit more of a leader. And you'll see that there's traits in your siblings where you're the person who sort of takes responsibility very, very quickly. Maybe you're the youngest like me, and your older siblings had children from young, and maybe seeing them become parents had a direct influence on you, whether it made you want to be a parent, or maybe it made you say, no, I don't want to be a parent. early on. See, I've got older sisters and I've seen both of them become parents, pretty much at a time that I didn't think was ideal. Of age, but not of a time that I thought was ideal. And that made me think, okay, when you have children, I had a realistic perspective of what happens to your life. I knew that children, if you've got a dream, then everything has to be put to a stop for the attention that you have to give to your children, because it goes from you trying to manage your own life to you managing your own life and somebody else's life. And that requires so much of you that you might have to put your dreams on the back burner. That's the influence it had on me. What about you? What influence did your siblings have? What actions did they take? And similar to the first set of questions, I want you to ask yourself, what did you like about your siblings? You know, my sister was a very caring person. She always, we didn't agree all the time and we would squabble like siblings do, argue, fight. But I always knew she cared. And my sister loved music. My sister used to have a Walkman and an MP3, and all of the music that she had on that was the music I listened to. I didn't have money to go buy out my own stuff. So she had the hip hop, she had the R&B, she had the Tupacs, the Janet Jacksons, all of this music, wide range of music that I would listen to on a regular basis, which has now influenced the music that I listen to today. Right? I can see a direct correlation. When I was younger, I used to take my sister's MP3, plug in the earphones, because I didn't really enjoy watching TV or playing with cartoons. I would just listen to music for hours and hours and hours. And back then, you didn't have chargers for your devices. So she would get really angry because I would drain all the battery she needed for an MP3. When she was going to work, it would die suddenly and she would know it was me who basically has been using her MP3 and using up all the battery, right? Why am I telling you this? Because now, in 2026, it's very rare you'll see me without headphones on. That's where that character trait comes from. What about you? Did your siblings have an impact on you? And something that you can see you do now today that was basically a result of the siblings you had or lack of siblings you have? Is it something small, something big? Really have a think about this. Write this down. This is actually beginning to actually look at how your personality was created up until this point. See, you're not self-made. You're a combination of all these influences. Once you can see them for what they are, you can decide which ones benefit you, which ones go against you, which ones are harming you. What didn't you like about your siblings? Right? What is it about them that you used to see? Or what did you not like about not having siblings if you're an only child? What was something that you missed out on in your childhood that you believe you wish you had, which might have shaped your personality today and made you maybe more progressive up until this point? See, we have a lot of things we blame our childhood on. They're in the subconscious, and until you bring them to the forefront, they will always impact your life directly or indirectly in ways that you can't see. Blind spots. What's the negative things about your siblings? Who are your closest friends? Now with this one, I want you not only to think of the friends you currently have, but I want you to first think of your first set of friends when you were in school. What sort of personality traits do they have? Then go to high school. Think of the friends you had outside of work, maybe in your area. I don't know if they do this anymore, but when I was growing up, the kids that lived in your area on the same street or road, you would end up being friends with them because we wouldn't be stuck inside playing games. We would go out and start playing in the streets, whether that's football, riding a bike, and you would see these kids and you begin to speak to them and very quickly you become friends. And you know, the friends you had in school might be completely different in personality to the kids that you're hanging around with on your street. You might have had a preference. Who were the kids you grew up with? What influence did they have on you? Why did you make them your friends to begin with? What character traits do they have? See, when I first went into primary school, which is, I think, preschool in America, about 5, 6 years old, I didn't speak English when I first went into school. I knew a few words and I knew what I was meant to say for certain situations, but I was so stuck in my head because I was in a predominantly white school and I always had this feeling that I stood out as the black kid, the only black kid in that class, that it put me in my head all the time. And the kids who were my first set of friends weren't out of choice. I was just playing alone on the playground, and there was just one kid that came up to me and started playing with me. Saw something in me and just decided, I'm going to speak to you. He became my friend. I clinged on to him because he was the only one that was going to come up to me and give me a chance. And he didn't speak to me at first. I remember the very first experience with him was on the playground. And I had a tennis racket, and I was, when you got the ball and you're bouncing it up and down, I was just walking around by myself. Young kids, man, these memories, I can't believe I can still pull them up. And he came up to me and he had a racket. And then I hit the ball towards him. Then he hit it back. We weren't speaking. This is how the friendship became. And as the years went by, I also had other people who started to play with me based off of them seeing me play with him, right? We became friends, and then I had my own group of friends. And my group of friends were the kids who weren't afraid to stand up for the person who's different. So whenever somebody would start on me, they'd be ready to fight that person with me. And we were the only group of boys who were willing to swing it out as a group. See, there was always another kid in another year that was willing to fight, but we were like, all of my friends, my small circle, were willing to fight for each other. So there was that brotherhood. So from very, very early, I learned that loyalty is important in friendship. And not loyalty as in they have to defend you all the time, but loyalty as in when they've got a friend, they defend that friend, whether he's there or he's not, if they see him being disrespected. So I always had a perspective when I was picking my friends that I'm going to pick the people who like me. Maybe you were the person who always tried to fit in your friendship groups. You was maybe the weirdo, but you just wanted to hang around with the popular kids. See, I never had that issue. And I can see now where that started, going back. It's because my first set of friends were people who picked me. So my relationship with picking friends is I always just pick the people who pick me in terms of friendships. But don't get it twisted, I had bad character traits. I used to seek approval, which we'll get into. But staying on subject, what did you like about your friends? And also think about the friends you also had in secondary school, in work. And if you had to look at all the friends that you've built over, all the friendships you've had, which have fizzled out maybe now, what do they all have in common? Which one stood out? Who was your closest friend? Was it someone from your childhood, from your secondary school days, teenage days, adolescence? Or is it your work life? Is it currently now you have the sort of friends that you can see yourself being friends with for life? Maybe you don't have that many friends. Maybe building real lasting friendships isn't something you've actually built. There's no shame in that. What there's shame in doing is now learning that this is an issue in your life and not doing something about it. What didn't you like about your friends? That's a difficult one, right? Because they're your friends. But you can be honest with, for me as the brothers, you can be honest. There's things that each friend you might not necessarily like, but they've got so many good traits that you overlook the things that you don't like, right? You're never going to find a perfect human being. This isn't about being judgmental. This is about seeing the influences. Now look at your friends and ask yourself this question, because most people never ever ask this question. What do your friends like about you? Have you ever asked them? Have you ever paid attention to what they say to you that could sort of indicate what they might like about you? Because now you can begin to see how you're coming across as a friend. Most people always ask the question, what can others do for me? But they never ask, what can I do for others? Start that today. Look at the influences you've had on your friends. And if you do know what sort of value they like in you, ask yourself, how did you build that character trait? Was it a result of you hanging around with them? Did you have it before them and then basically they became friends with you because of that trait? And if so, where did that stem from? See, this is a real deep contemplation. This is what I mean about this channel. We're going to ask you some difficult questions, but really have a think about this. My next set of final questions. Now, I could do this for hours on end. I think eventually I'm going to put out some sort of, video series that's going to really help you get to the bottom of this, because I have so many questions I've asked myself, which has really helped me understand me. But I think this exercise will help you understand the process a little bit more. But Let me ask you your next question. What do you do for work if you're a working person right now? Or if you're studying, what are you studying and what are you moving towards? What are you working towards if you're trying to start a business? Why do you want to do that thing, or why are you doing that thing? Who encouraged you to do it? Was it from you directly? Did you say, hey, I actually enjoy doing this? Or did you see certain personality traits that you have which strive within that environment? I do sales, right? And I always say to people, you don't choose sales, you kind of fall into sales. It's always one of those career paths that all the time is hiring, and it allows you to make money based off of your skill set. So you can be 21 making more money than a 40-year-old immediately if you just naturally pick up the gift of the gab of selling. I'll make a video one day for you guys who don't know selling to actually understand what it is, because a lot of you have this negative perception of what sales is. If you learn sales, you probably change your life in a year in such a way that's more dramatic than even some of these exercises. But anyway, that's for another day. But what are you doing for work right now? Why are you doing it? Who got you walking down that path? I want you to look at your parents, your friends, your upbringing, your siblings, all the things we spoke about in the previous questions. Did they have an influence on what you're doing right now? Why are you doing it? Is it because you saw one of them doing it and you knew that this path is best suited for you? Is it best suited for you? What don't you like about your workplace? See, you're never going to find something that you completely enjoy doing. Me filming these videos, my favorite part is sitting down and talking to the camera, because I'm very much in the zone. I'm in a flow right now. This doesn't feel like work. I could keep talking, but I have to make this relevant to you guys, right? So I'm trying to get to a point where I structure my videos and you leave this video with some sort of profound new idea, new outlook. The things I teach you aren't tangible. You ain't going to go up to your friends and say, hey, look at this ball. It's me. I learned about myself this weekend, and they can hold it and say, wow, I can see it. This is going to be videos that change your life bit by bit. They're going to compound, and within 6, 12, 36 months, 24 months, whatever it is, 10 years, you're going to be a completely different person. Because for the first time in your life, you actually started directing your life. You became the director of your life. The life you want is only built when you have the creativity of a Michael Jackson, but the strategic mind of a Michael Corleone. You need to dream like an artist, but move like a mastermind. You need to plan your life, your influences, the road you're walking on, the way the mafia plans a hit. Every detail is accounted for. So what you do for work, why are you doing it? What don't you like about it? Have you considered another path? What are your strengths and weaknesses in your current place of work, or the project you're working on, or what's got you walking down that path? As you can probably tell by this video, if you've done these exercises correctly, your personality has been evolving for a period of years. The person you are as a child wasn't the person you are as a teenager. The person you are as a teenager isn't the person you are today. And you're probably going to change even more. And there's all sorts of influences that have helped shape your personality unconsciously. Right? Directly or indirectly, there's things, places, and people that have influenced who you are today. And the point of this video is just to get you guys to see that for the first time in your life. And maybe if you can begin to see that, you can begin to consciously construct an ecosystem that helps you become the sort of person you want to become. See, I don't do the definition for you. You have to define that. I say it all the time, every single time. And if this video hits you and the exercises hit you the way in which they change me, and you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, then I don't know what's wrong with you, because I literally be sending you this sort of stuff every single week. I'm building the foundation for you. There's frameworks. And people always throw that stuff away. Oh, what about the frameworks? What do I do today? See, this is the problem. You've been searching for the right thing to do for years, and you've been going round in circles. How much progress have you actually made in your life? If you can get honest with yourself, you'll realize the progress you're making is very minimal. And if you take the time to sit back, fix the frameworks in which you're looking at the world in, the lens, the perspective, your philosophy, and really begin to understand yourself. What's made you the way you are? What's the good? What's the bad? You can begin to move in the right direction. So if you don't figure out who you are, other people will figure out who you are and they'll manipulate you into a path that you don't want to walk down. You guys aren't ready for that one. So I'm going to leave this video there, guys. If you didn't take the exercises seriously, I would say listen to this first time, sit with the thoughts, come back and do the exercises properly, make your notes. Leave a comment on what you guys got from this video. How did it challenge your way of thinking? I've got a newsletter called The Next Chapter where I'm going through these transformations with you. I'm asking myself these questions. I'm answering them on the video, just like now. And we're beginning to do the deep level identity change you need to do in order to become the sort of person you want to become. Make sure to subscribe to that newsletter. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. My name's Tino, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Let's go.